Welcome, gentle listener. I am Voldemort, and I wish to introduce you to the factions of the Warhammer 40k universe. I hope you enjoyed my introduction to the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum. So, let us now explore the faction in more detail. The history and organization of the Astra Militarum. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is only war. But how did all of this come to pass? How did it get this way? I have done a more extensive introduction to the basic history and lore of the rise of the Imperium in my entry for Rogel Dawn, which I would advise you to watch, as it gives context to this entry. But I shall cover matters in very brief, so that this can be a self-contained entry for an Astra Militarum fan. Humanity expanded into the stars, with technology and culture surpassing all but the oldest races that plied the stars of the Warhammer galaxy. Their reach was huge, and the number of colonies across the Milky Way were almost uncounted. Alas, the age of prosperity and progress was not to last, and a myriad of new threats and unhappy circumstances all conspired to end the Human Galactic Federation. In the years that followed, humanity endured thousands of years of hardship, attack, and subjugation. Forces arose that would see humanity become nothing more than playthings, thralls, and slaves to these innumerable dark forces. Humanity was almost lost. We degenerated on most worlds to a feudal or feral existence. Knowledge, technology, and culture were soon eroded in the visceral struggle to merely exist. We lost so much. This long period of 5 to 10,000 years goes by many names, but the Age of Strife and Old Night are the most commonly used. But there was a man, the greatest of our kind, an immortal of vast power who'd clung to life and travelled the streams of time, from the earliest periods of prehistory all the way to the modern era. He witnessed all of the long ages of humanity through to the 30th millennium. He witnessed humanity's flame gutter and almost be extinguished. So he arose and took direct action for the first time in his long existence. He arose to lead humanity to salvation. He is only known as the Emperor, the Master of Mankind. But he is central to our history of the Guard. He is now venerated as a god, despite how he would deny this mantle were he yet walking among the stars again. But we shall get to the Emperor of Mankind in far more detail in a future entry. All that you require to know at this stage, gentle listener, is that he took action. Firstly, he forged an army the likes that had never been seen before. With this genetically engineered army, known as the Astartes, the Space Marines, he unified the warring factions of humanity through domination. He then went on to conquer the Sol system and gather its strength, for the inhabitants of Mars had retained some of the lost technologies themselves and added their colossal war machines to the already formidable armies of the genetically engineered super soldiers known as the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines. With this army, he then embarked on his great crusade to reach across the stars and locate, free, and protect the lives of all of the far-flung tribes of humanity. The crusade was led by his gene sons, 20 Primarchs, each a warrior of legendary power. As the crusade moved ever outward, it was soon apparent that the armies of the Astartes would be able to conquer the galaxy, but would not be able to garrison it, would not be able to protect it, would not be able to make it entirely safe. Thus did the Solar Auxiliary come into life. Normal humans recruited and equipped with the best weaponry that humanity could provide. These forces were elite and eventually joined their brothers, the Astartes, on the front lines of the crusade. But there were also the forces of the Imperialis Auxilia, the forebears of the Astra Militarum, the standard human soldiery that would garrison worlds recently conquered, that would patrol and protect. These were the forebears of the present-day Imperial Guard, the most numerous and true strength of the Emperor's Imperium of Man. Human generals would lead the forces of the Navy, the fleet, and the army and war machines of the Adeptus Titanicus of Mars. One would wield immense power, bowing only to the Astartes and their leaders, the Primarchs, in matters of defense and war. Alas, this period ended with a catastrophic civil war, led by the most favoured of the Primarchs, Horus Lupercal. Forces of the Astartes and Solar Auxilia and Imperial Guard all went over to him in rebellion against their master, the Emperor. The war nearly tore the Imperium of Man to pieces, but eventually, at great cost, the rebellion was put down. When the loyal Primarchs made war on their treasonous brothers and chased them to a rent in space, leading to the hellish realm known only as the Warp, which I will cover in more detail in the future, they left behind one of their number to execute the defences of the realm. This Primarch was Reboot Guilliman. Guilliman had seen the horror of the Civil War, ever after known as the Horus Heresy, and made plans to make sure that its like could never occur again. He codified the ways in which the armed forces of the Imperium would be used, forever stopping the power of one man ever becoming so much that they would be able to be tempted to follow suit with Horus Lupercal. Mixed armed units are almost unheard of, as this again concentrates too much power in one person's hands. Thus, regiments will be infantry, or tanks, or other various forms, but one regiment is never able to wage war successfully without the assistance of other regiments. Although this does have its tactical and strategic limitations, the spectre of one man having total autonomy and being able to have a fully functional army is a step too far. Thus, the bureaucracy and sluggish reactions of the Imperial forces may be derided by other races. They may not be optimal, as people would say in our time, but there has never been a rebellion of the magnitude and impact of the Horus Heresy to this day, over 10,000 years later. For in all of the terrors of the galaxy of the grim darkness, the worst enemy of humanity has ever been humanity. So, despite the losses these fail-safes sometimes accrue, it is deemed a necessary evil to fend off the destruction and horror of another civil war. But how is this important, one might ask? It is important as it explains the reason that the Astra Militarum, the Guard, are organized and is fundamental to the entire outlook and structure of the Imperium in all of the long years since the heresy. For the Imperium has stood for over 10,000 years, beset on all sides from never-ending waves of aggression. Xenos, the Imperium's name for aliens, are but one threat, as all seek to claim the territory held by the human race and to enslave or annihilate us. Darkness is implicit in this world, as the warp contains malevolent forces called the Dark Gods of Chaos, who wish also to destroy or subjugate the Imperium. Between the forces of corruption and the myriad Xenos races that assault the Imperium on an hourly basis in their teeming hordes, in their masses, the battle for the survival of the Imperium and the human race has never been fiercer. It is in this backdrop that we explore the innumerable armies of humanity. The Astartes, the Space Marines, still exist and are a terror which Xenos dread to see, but they are excruciatingly few in number. It is the Imperial Navy and the Guard, the Astra Militarum, who hold the line. It is humanity that is the shield against tyranny, sorcery, subjugation and genocidal attacks from the alien, the Xenos, that never end and only gain in strength with each passing year and century. New terrors, ancient overlords, and creatures that have made war for millions of years beset the Imperium, so that it is impossible to understate the task that is faced by the brave human souls who fight them every day. Now, we shall lean on existing wisdom to explain some of the structure of the present Imperium, now that we know their genesis. The Strategic Command. The Lord Commander of a segmentum gives orders to various sector officers, who in turn relay commandments to the individual Militarum regimentos. In this way, the wishes of the High Lords of Terra are enacted by the Departamento Munitorum. In practice, the immense distances and delays in communication between worlds often made a mockery of such procedures, and the sheer scale of the Imperium prevents any meaningful central governance. Operational control of an army group is therefore assumed by a high-ranking Militarum regimentum officer, such as a general, high marshal, or even Lord Hetman, who assumes responsibility for the completion of their given duties. This might be the initiation of a decade-long conflict to cleanse a star system of savage greenskins, or it could involve the protection of adamantium mines or promethium refineries from pirate raids. Just as common are military recolonizations of planets lost from the Imperium's fold. Whatever the task, the commander of an army group is responsible for the deployment and application of all resources at their disposal, innumerable waves of human companies, ranks of battle tanks, batteries of artillery weapons, and host of other tools of war. Some commanders are hungry for glory and honor, establishing front-line headquarters and personally leading their men in battle. Banners and pennants proclaiming the officer's many deeds are carried by his entourage, emboldening his troops and filling his enemies with trepidation. Others consider their abilities far too important and valuable to be exposed to such front-line conflicts. Surrounded by a host of advisors, data globes and parchment-bearing servo skulls, they direct their forces from relative safety of an orbiting starship, a Proteus-class battle bunker, or a lumbering, armoured command vehicle. There are very rare circumstances in which a high level of command is necessary. In these times, the rank of War Master is bestowed upon a mighty and brilliant leader. This rank can only be conferred with the express consent of the High Lords of Terra, and such an individual is said to wield authority second only to the Emperor himself. Several centuries can pass without a War Master being appointed, and, because of the unrivaled power of the position, there is never more than one in existence at any one time. Due to the stigma associated with the title, thanks to the deeds of the arch-traitor Horus, it is not uncommon for other titles to be used in place of War Master, such as Lord Solar. But without doubt, any man or woman given such a command is surrounded by inquisitors and others who will watch their every action for loyalty, for signs of treachery, and will then take action if they notice it. To quote, the Departamento Munitorum. The Departamento Munitorum is the military arm of the Administratum and forms the general staff of the Imperial Guard. It is a mammoth bureaucratic organization responsible for the redistribution of all the Astra Militarum's resources. Perhaps its most important function concerning the monitoring of tithes and the raising and transportation of the Astra Militarum between war zones, for which it liaises with the Imperial Navy. Without the adepts and scribes of the Departament Munitorum, the vast armies of the Imperial Guard would stagnate, and calls for aid would go unanswered. The mighty war fleets of the Imperial Navy would not intercept enemy invasions. The armies of mankind would never push back their relentless attacks. Slowly but surely, the isolated worlds would fall and the Imperium would ultimately be lost. Despite its vital significance, the Departmentum Munitorum is at best an unwieldy organization. A plea for military aid may not be acted upon for months, years, or even decades after it has been received. Such requests typically make their way through countless adepts before finally reaching the hands of one who can sanction suitable action, sitting at a dimly lit pulpit station many hundreds of light years away. A battle group consisting of over a dozen regiments for Mordant and Tremert was raised to eliminate unknown Xenos forces on the planet of Hespraxia, only to arrive a century too late, finding a lifeless world with no trace of survivors. Organized at the sector and subsector level, every echelon of the Departmentum Munitorum has enough autonomy to respond to problems within local star systems. With the vagaries of warp travel and communication, this is essential. Their small size allows the individual subsectors to respond to emergent threats more quickly, and as such, when one comes under attack, an army group is formed from the regiments of all worlds in the local star systems. When raising an army group, the Departmentum Munitorum is responsible for munitions, supplies, recruitment, training, and support, both medical and technical. The methods by which forces accumulate are haphazard at best. Many thousands of troops from dozens of regiments across several worlds are raised and directed to the appropriate war zone. The unpredictable nature of the warp and the inherent dangers of interstellar travel are such that it is not unusual for entire regiments to be lost or even destroyed in transit. Some may be delayed by the ravages of warp storms, or appear from the immaterial many thousands of light years from their destination. That sufficient troops and equipment arrive at a crisis point is only because of the sheer mass of manpower, weapons, and vehicles dispatched by the Departmentum Munitorum in the first place. The Departmentum Munitorum is broken up to many wings. The Militarum Vendorum, the paymasters of the Imperium, the Militarum Ordinatus, the artillery and other heavy firepower of the Astra Militarum, the Militarum Auxilia, which are abhumans, which I will get into more at another time, the Militarum Tempestos, elite shock troops, and the Commissars, Militarum Regimentos. This makes up the many different corps which are available to the Militarum. These can be infantry corps, tank corps, assault corps, engineering, scouting, troops, or cavalry corps, each one doing their part within the grand scheme of the battle as directed by their lords. It is best to remember that the scale of the Warhammer world is beyond anything you will have ever encountered before in fiction. There are touted to be 1 million worlds in the Imperium, but more are lost or conquered each day, each hour, each second. It is a setting of never-ending, total war. The forces of the Astra Militarum alone are numbered in their billions. The scope for story and drama is thus so expansive that it is a rich wellspring for so many tales. With the very briefest of overviews of the history and structure of the Imperial Guard now related, I will end this entry, but please do continue to my other entries on the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum. There is so much rich background to discuss, and I shall attempt to project it all as time goes by. I have been Voldemort, your faithful servant. If you have enjoyed my brief introduction to the history and structure of the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, then do please consider liking and subscribing. If so, then please do remember to press the notifications button. I would not want you to miss out.